So that's the other policy we make. Oops, so this didn't come out right. So our results highlight large potential returns from developing policies to improve teacher quality. I think that's, look, if the only thing you want to take away from the policy discussion, or you want to throw away the policy discussion, that's fine with me, right? Because we're speculating here on the policy side. We're using our estimates the best way we can, but we're speculating. These aren't real policies that we've implemented, okay? At the very minimum, what we show is that policies that could improve teacher quality would have very large returns, okay? Could have very large returns, okay? Large potential gains. We need more work to assess value added as a policy tool, okay? Because what I've shown you today is not value added used in a high stakes, real world context, right? Using these kinds of measures in a high stakes situation, we might think is going to induce behaviors that we don't like, right? Teaching to the test, or in the US, we've seen a lot of examples of cheating, right? Where teachers are worried about their job is based on the test scores, and so they end up filling in the answers for their kids, or giving their kids the right answers, or doing things like that. Now, those things are easy to correct in some sense. Like, we can stop cheating, but we do have to worry about that. We do have to worry about that, okay? The other thing is, the errors we make in personnel decisions should be weighed against mean benefits. That is, if I'm going to start making teaching a more high-stakes profession, where it's possible that in your first couple of years you get fired. Currently, in most schools, the chances of you getting fired is quite low, okay? But if we make teaching a more high-stakes profession, then people are going to demand a higher wage to go into that profession, okay? And so there's going to be some cost associated with it. Now, my guess is, if our estimates are real, you'd still be willing to pay higher teacher salaries, right? So if you really could get an extra $200,000 of value for this policy, it'd be cheap to say, okay, everyone gets an extra $10,000 in their salary for the first 3 years, as long as you accept this contract, which is if you perform badly, you're out. You know, that would be cheap relative to the gains you'd get. And for an extra $10,000 in salary, my guess is you'd get a lot of people to still sign on for this job. But that's also an important caveat. Okay? And I'll say that recent experience in the US is likely to give us a lot of information here. So this paper has come out at a time where many states in the US are reforming teacher evaluation, okay? And each state is doing it in a different way. There's similarities across a lot of these programs, but states are doing it in different ways. And even below the state level, often local school districts get to decide on some of the parameters of their teacher evaluation process. Some of this gets to be decided locally at the town or the city level. And so we are running a great experiment in reforming teacher evaluation, from which I think we'll be able to learn a lot about the practical details of doing this kind of evaluation well, right? So that's one issue, the state reforms. And then the other is we've got a lot of cutting-edge research. I think I'll point out one thing that I think is a really important thing, if you're not already familiar with it, is the Gates Foundation's Measures of Effective Teaching project, which is trying to think about the practical issues associated with doing teacher evaluation in the real world, and thinks about how would you come up with a system where you combined measures based on student test scores with other kinds of measures based on classroom observation, peer evaluation, students' evaluations of their own teachers, analysis of portfolios of student work, all these other kinds of things we might use to evaluate teachers. How might we combine those into an overall evaluation package? Because where the policies are going are not to just use test scores and nothing else. Nobody is suggesting that's a good system, and none of the states are going towards that system. They're going towards systems where some significant percentage, somewhere between, let's say, 15 and 50% of the weight in a teacher's evaluation would be on a test score or several sets of test scores. And then the majority usually will be allocated to things like what an administrator who observes you teach says about your teaching, gives you a score on some rubric. And as much as we know a lot about value added, I've shown you a lot about bias and reliability and things like that in value added, we don't know a lot yet about how biased principals are when they watch someone teach.
They are.
Exactly. So you might think that there's worse problems with bias or reliability in some of these softer measures that we use to evaluate teachers, and we need to study those just as much as we've been studying using test scores. And that evidence base is just now, I think, getting larger and stronger in the U.S. So I'm out of time, so I'll stop there. There's no other questions? Oh, yeah, sure.
Tell us, what is the main policy in New York district? What is the main policy?
It's okay, I can hear
Like
you,
that.
so.
Okay. What is the main policy in the New York district? Hiring the bus teachers, or?
So I'll tell you a few things. So in New York City is following the New York State laws, which have changed. So they're going to a system where 20% of a teacher's evaluation will be based on something like this, student test scores. Another 20% will be based on a locally selected test where they can use whatever measure they want, but they have, it's a sort of a local selection. And then 60% will be based on classroom observation and portfolio analysis. Okay? New York City, and then the repercussions of that score are mandated at the state level. So if you do badly on that system for 2 years in a row, you lose your license to teach. Okay? New York City also has moved away from a policy where teachers get tenure after 3 years as a matter of course to a policy where getting tenure, that is getting a long-term, basically permanent contract, is much harder. So last year, less than half of the teachers who were up or eligible for tenure actually received it. A large fraction of those who didn't receive it were not fired. They were basically told, we need to wait another year to observe you, to see if you are worthy or merit getting tenure. And then I think around 10% of teachers were told, you should leave. Okay, so they are opting for a system of trying to weed out the best teachers. They experimented with a teacher bonus program, bonus pay for high-performing teachers, but the union would only agree to a school-based bonus program, not an individual-based bonus program. They tried the school-based program for 2 years. They funded it with private money. They did a randomized experiment so they could really say whether the bonus program had any positive effects. They found no positive effects of the bonus program. Okay? Nothing. Now that may be because of the technical details of how the bonus was allocated. It was a bonus that was equal for every teacher in the school, even though it was mostly based on the test scores, and only a subset of the teachers contribute to that. It was based on a complicated formula that maybe teachers didn't understand, but they put $40 million or something like that, maybe 20 or 30 or $40 million into this bonus program, got nothing for it. So I think they're probably a little bit shy about doing those kinds of programs after the experience that they had. Okay?
Okay.